25 years later, out here on the Prince William Sound, the views look great, but much of the concern lies within the ocean's ecosystem and with the wildlife whose lives depend on it. New life in Prince William Sound is a refreshing sight. 25 years after a devastating oil spill heavily impacted the region and many of its most prized wildlife species. The sea otter population took a major hit when the Exxon Valdez spilled 11 million gallons of oil into the Sound in 1989. Covered in crude and facing a harsh winter environment, these sea otters immediately lost the ability to self-insulate. Sea otters rely on their fur, not blubber, to stay warm, meaning they must not only continuously groom themselves to keep an air layer against their skin, but they also must eat constantly to maintain their metabolism. But now, 25 years after the spill, a recent study by the United States Geological Survey indicates the sea otter population has rebounded to pre-spill numbers.
In our last 3 to 4 years, we've noted that now animals are getting old again. So the pattern of ages, the distribution of ages at death has gone back to the pre-spill pattern. Sea otters in the western Prince William Sound are once again getting elderly.
While wildlife advocates applaud the increased numbers, they argue the report doesn't tell the whole story.
The report is a robust piece of science.
Marine biologist Rick Steiner says the present-day sea otter population in the Sound does not yet meet his expectations for full recovery.
We have to look not just at what the sea otter population numbers were pre-spill, but we have to imagine where they would be 25 years later. The USGS study presumes that sea otters were at equilibrium density before the spill, and therefore if they've returned to the pre-spill numbers now, a quarter of a century later, that they are fully recovered. I think that's a questionable presumption.
There's another smaller species in the Sound that's also being studied. As experts say, it plays a huge role in the overall health of the ecosystem.
We're dealing with the world's richest waters, and that's not hyperbole.
Rob Campbell is an oceanographer who's been studying the Prince William Sound for many years. He says one of the most basic building blocks in any oceanic ecosystem is plankton.
The salad bar, if you will. And so if there's more nutrients available, you'll probably get more plankton. More plankton gets eaten, there's more food available for fish.
And then there are groups that make up higher levels of the food chain, like herring, a species that all but disappeared from the Sound following the oil spill.
We think that the exposure combined with the nutritional stress made the herring more susceptible to disease, and so there was a large disease outbreak that caused the adult population to crash.
Researcher Scott Paga has studied the herring's decline in great detail. He knows the species used to be the #1 fishery in the region.
The population level prior to the spill was in the 80 to 100,000 tons. To open a fishery, you have to be in excess of 22,000 tons. And we haven't seen that excess of 22,000 tons since 1998.
But there is some good news. In 2012, Paga says juvenile herring appeared to be making a comeback. Last June, aerial surveys reported 2,100 schools in Prince William Sound. That's compared to previous years of 100 to 175 schools.
Oh, that was not a very good throw.
Good news for not only herring, but other species that relies on the fish to survive.
The lack of herring for the last several years has probably slowed down some of the recovery of certain species because it is such an important food source to so many animals.
While many are celebrating the apparent comeback of several species, now a quarter of a century after the devastating spill, the definition of full recovery seems to be up for debate. Meanwhile, nearly everyone can agree the sight of sea otters frolicking in the Sound is encouraging. For Channel 2 News, I'm Garrett Turner.